this episode of the Whiskey Tornado, we review Smoke Wagon's Small Batch Bourbon and Smoke Wagon's Uncut and Unfiltered Bourbon. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Whiskey Tornado. I'm your host, Lance. Today we are reviewing Smoke Wagon Small Batch and Uncut and Unfiltered Bourbon. We're going to compare them and score them. Before we get into the bourbon, I want to take a quick second and just thank everybody who has followed us on Instagram. We just went over 3,000 followers, so that's super exciting. Today I'm excited to test these two. This is the Uncut Unfiltered. The bottle I have, or the batch I have, is at 57.45%. And then we've got the small batch here on my left that is always 100 proof. Smoke Wagon's a relatively new company. They are sourcing their bourbon from MGP. I believe their small batch has 4 to 6, 8 year bourbon in it, and their Uncut Unfiltered has, I think, 6 plus, but a lot of 8 year MGP. I could be wrong about that, but you can go do the research. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. I love what Smoke Wagon's doing. I love their Instagram account. If you haven't followed them, go check them out. They're super open and transparent, which is what I love. The distiller there, Aaron Chepanik, posts regularly. He tastes bottles or barrels regularly. Oftentimes he's so open he'll even taste a barrel and tell you if it's crap or not. And and he just really talks about them. I love listening to him talk about his tasting process, his blending process. You'll notice if you follow him on Instagram, they don't have batches on their Uncut Unfiltered, but they're never exactly the same. He's always just mixing them to taste. He even admits, sometimes he wants them a little hotter, sometimes not as hot. So just because I'm reviewing this Uncut Unfiltered, giving you tasting notes, it may not be the same as the batch you get. So we'll see. We're going to rate them today. I'm going to test the small batch against the Uncut Unfiltered, tell you which one I like better. So we've got the small batch on my left, Uncut Unfiltered on my right. Our scoring system, we have 6 categories. We rate nose, palate, finish, presentation, availability, and then value. I score each of those categories 0 to 1, 0.5 being average. We add them up at the end. Anything 3 or better is bar worthy. 4 is, if it's 4 or better, it's usually grab a few, maybe even bunker some. So, all right, let's get into the small batch here on my left, and we're gonna nose it first. The nose on the small batch is a little thin, but what's there I really like. I get right away some like red fruits, but not cherry. It's more like a strawberry. And I don't know how to describe this, but the nose is almost, you can tell the palate is going to be waxy. I don't know how to explain that. So it almost smells like a red Twizzler to me, like a strawberry Twizzler. But then there's some caramel and really light oak in there. But the nose isn't as dense as what you'll find in like barrel proofs, but it's still really good. It's a better than average nose. I'd say I probably rate the nose on this at a 0.6. Okay, let's go to the Uncut Unfiltered nose. And it's instantly hotter, for sure. First thing I got hit with the nose on this is just caramel. It smells very similar to the small batch, but hotter. On the Uncut Unfiltered, there's I'm getting a little bit of orange zest in addition to the other things, but I'm not getting so much of that like Twizzler strawberry. It's a good nose, just a little bit hot. I probably honestly prefer the small batch nose to the Uncut Unfiltered. Yeah, I think I do. So, I think this is probably an average nose, and we'll probably rate it a 0.5. Yeah. All right, let's go into the palate on the small batch. Yeah, it's really interesting. On the palate with the small batch, it's like, it is waxy. But it is that like strawberry Twizzler, or also like I'm getting a little bit of butterscotch, and it reminds me of not like your like soft chews that are super sugary. It reminds me of like the Werther's that are, the Werther's butterscotch, where if the butterscotch was toned way down, but that waxy feel you get on those hard candies, that's a lot what I'm getting. And then there's like, there's cinnamon as well. So the palate on this is really nice, really interesting. You can tell it's MGP with a twist. You can definitely tell it's MGP juice, but it does have a little bit of a different flavor to it, which I love. I'm going to give this better than average on the palate. I'm going to give it a 0.7. So let's go over to the Uncut Unfiltered. Yeah, it is. You can tell these are both higher rye, and on the Uncut Unfiltered, it is definitely more spicy. You get that orange zest, like a caramel vanilla in there, definitely cinnamon, and then just tons of rye spice. It's good, but it fights you. It's definitely more challenging than the small batch, which some people are gonna love, some people aren't gonna love, but it's good. I think I'm going to give the palate on the small batch just slightly better score than the palate on the Uncut Unfiltered. And I know that's going to be unpopular because everyone loves the Uncut Unfiltered, but I kind of enjoy the Twizzler aspect that I'm getting on the small batch more than this particular batch of Uncut Unfiltered. I'm going to give the small batch a 0.7 on the palate and the Uncut Unfiltered a 0.6 on the palate. What I am noticing and tasting this is what makes these two stand apart is the finish, and the finish on the Uncut Unfiltered destroys the finish on the small batch. The finish on the small batch is like black pepper spice that envelops the whole tongue, but it's not super long. The finish on the Uncut Unfiltered is that black pepper spice cranked up to 10,000, and it goes forever. Like, I'm still tasting it. And I think that's one of the things that Aaron Chepanek was going for when he blends the Uncut Unfiltered. He really likes the long finish, and you can tell. I mean, this thing is just rice spice for days. Yeah, it's really good. And that's where this kind of like starts taking the lead against the small batch, I think. On the finish on the small batch, I'm going to give it a 0.5. It's pretty average. But on the Uncut Unfiltered, I mean, it's a 0.9. It's almost perfect. It goes forever. So if you're somebody who really likes finishes, and that's one of the biggest criteria for grading your bourbons, you're going to want to go with the Uncut Unfiltered. As far as the presentation goes on both of these, I'm going to give both of them a 0.9. I think, you can't really get a cooler bottle than these Smoke Wagon bourbon bottles. I do think it's interesting how they went with the gold medallion and mostly black label, rather than doing gold medallion and mostly gold label. I think that probably would have looked better, but it's nitpicking. There's just no cooler bottle in the bourbon game, if you ask me, than these Smoke Wagon bottles. It's so cool with the guns on there, the medallions, the roses like etched into the bottle. It's a beautiful bottle. So we're gonna give it a 0.9. Availability on these, I haven't seen them a lot. I think they're becoming more available. I live in Illinois, so availability in Illinois is becoming more. I'm seeing them more and more. The small batch is, I'm going to give it below average. It's like a 0.4. The Uncut Unfiltered, I've only seen a handful of times, so we're going to give it a 0.2. Now, that could change. From what I understand, listening to interviews with Aaron Chepanek, he's got tons of MGP barrels, and he's not planning on doing his juice anytime soon. He's just going to be sourcing MGP aging it a little bit in Las Vegas, and then and bottling it from there. And I think that's a good plan because it's really good. He's really upfront and honest about everything he's doing, and MGP juice is some of the greatest there is. Value. On value, the small batch, you've got 4 to 8 year bourbon that he's coming up with a pretty consistent profile. There's still some variances from what I understand. But it's better than average value. I would give it a 0.6. On the Uncut Unfiltered, you've got 8+ year MGP. A lot of these places sourcing 10+ year MGP bottles can run you $100 to $200. So you've got 8 year plus MGP. I think he mixes some 10, some 11, even some 12 year in there occasionally. You've got, it's barrel proof, it's uncut, unfiltered. The cool part is each batch is a little different, and I love that. I love that he's not trying to make all the batches taste the same. I would like it if he'd start numbering the batches. That would be pretty nice to know if there was a particular batch you really loved, you could seek out. And then you're getting these for around $70. So that's really good value. It's a 0.8 on the Uncut Unfiltered for the value. But I assume as people, the company's growing in popularity, and I imagine these are going to be harder and harder to find. So the small batch the score on the small batch comes to a 3.7. Even though I like the palate a little bit better, the score on the Uncut Unfiltered comes to a 3.9. So it's like right there with being bunker worthy, and I would grab some extra of the Uncut Unfiltered and bunker them. Maybe as this is a pretty new bottle and this one's open, so maybe as this opens up I might like the palate a little bit more. But I love what they're doing. I love what's going on in these bottles. It's not your typical MGP. It does taste like MGP with a little bit of a twist. So all around great bourbon. We've got a 3.7 on the small batch, which runs around $50, and a 3.9 on the Uncut Unfiltered. So hope you guys enjoyed the review. Leave me some comments below if you've had either of these. Let me know what you think, and let me know if your tasting notes are the same. I'd be interested to know since each batch is a little different. All right, cheers guys.